Hello guys, this is Joshua. He's going to be my audience for today. My name is Carly Bowers. I want you guys to all close your eyes and picture your favorite tourist destination. Maybe you're on a Miami beach and you have the sand in your toes as you're watching the ocean and the waves. Maybe you're sitting in a Paris cafe, sipping a cappuccino, watching the skyline or people watching. Maybe you're walking through the streets of Rome, looking at the infatuating colors in the buildings, or maybe you're sitting in New York City watching a sunset fit perfectly over a skyline, one of my favorites. Now look to the right of you. What do you see? Trash in the ocean, a trash can overfilling with trash. Do you hear the loud, bustling crowd that feels like it's closing in around you? Tourism is popular, especially after COVID-19 and the pandemic has come to an end. It's mostly seen as a good thing for countries. For some countries, it's how they thrive economically and socially. However, this is not always the case. It is important to understand the effects of mass tourism so we can preserve the popular tourist destinations all over the world, not just the United States. Growing up, my family traveled a lot, whether it was flying, driving, or being on a cruise ship sailing around the world. I always wondered what my personal carbon footprint was, not only just mine, but the whole family's together. And this led me to research the effects of mass tourism extensively. What was it doing to the places we were visiting? How was it impacting us? And how was it impacting the environment? Today, I will explain the social, economic, and environmental impacts of mass tourism. Firstly, how cultures change through mass tourism, the economic impacts like price inflation, and lastly, the environmental consequences. Social impacts, like mass tourism often dilutes local cultures. This may lead to the loss of identity in cultures. For example, in Venice, Italy, they were once filled with authentic crafts that were in the shops throughout the streets. Now, when you walk in these shops, you'll see mass-produced cheap souvenirs. Think of the gondola rides that were once used as a form of transportation. Now they're used as a tourist attraction. The rise of tourists in certain cities can alter the community. Venice again has seen a huge decline in population, people that are living there. A source called Venezia Authentica, which is based in Venice, researched and made visual graphs showing the number of tourists increasing, but the habitants and residents are decreasing. The more tourists that moved to Venice, the more locals left. Why are so many locals leaving Italy? An increased cost of living, higher cost of housing, and a decrease in quality of life. The negative economic impacts of mass tourism are evident in many places. For example, the United States Virgin Islands. The Virgin Islands source shows the USVI is one of the top tourist destinations that has been negatively impacting. The housing expenses alone have doubled in the past 4 years. People there cannot afford the basics like housing and food, which is causing them to leave, so their culture is leaving as well. Think about supply and demand. Tourists drive up the prices, and locals feel the effects of it. Some popular destinations have benefited from tourism. There's no doubt about it. According to the World Travel and Tourism Council, the direct contribution of tourism to the Maldives economy is a staggering 41.5% of total GDP in 2014. This means that almost 50% of the money that the Maldives was getting in was from tourism. It's not always negative that they're relying on this, but some cultures wish that that wasn't the case. The economic impacts of tourism can be negative to locals, but the environmental impacts of tourism, in fact, affect everyone, including our future generations. Mass tourism overall leads to environmental degradation. For example, things like littering, habitat destruction, pollution, climate. National parks in the U.S. are expecting degradation. This isn't just tourist destinations that are around the world, it's in the United States as well. Michael Childers, who is a professor at Colorado State University, has begged in multiple articles for many years for national parks in the United States to put a reservation system in place. A reservation system would allow people to say what days they're going to the parks, and the parks would only allow in a certain amount of people each day. By doing this, less people would be coming to the parks, which would slow down the rate of degradation, which is from overcrowding. He argues that putting reservations into the park would slow soil erosion, the trampling of vegetation would lessen, and less animal habitats would be damaged. High amounts of tourists can also lead to resource depletion, like water and energy. Another example from the Virgin Islands is water. In the Virgin Islands, their water system is 100% from rainwater. So if they're not getting rainwater that week, then they won't have access to water for their showers, laundry, or just regular drinking water. When more tourists are on the island and they have to share water and it's a dry spell in the year, this means that the locals are having a hard time getting water for their basic needs, like bathing, whereas tourists who live in places that are not as highly dense are able to get water easily. There are many social, economic, and environmental impacts of mass tourism. Cultures have washed away, like we saw in Venice, Italy. Tourists have driven up prices, which has happened everywhere, but also that has come with just inflation as a whole. And environments are slowly washing away. This is not just all over the world, this is in the United States as well. All of these may seem like small things, but they all add up for a bigger difference. There are negative impacts of mass tourism, and they are important. And even though they are small, they will make a big difference if someone were to work to lessen them. Thank you. And once again, this is Joshua. Thank you for watching my speech.